The coast of Argentina, the dead of winter in the southern hemisphere. A heavy, freezing fog rolls off the South Atlantic, smothering the naval base at Mar del Plata. Out on the water, local fishermen are pulling in their nets. The world is finally at peace. The Second World War in Europe has been over for 2 entire months. Hitler is dead. The Third Reich is ashes. The oceans are supposed to be safe. But out in the freezing mist, the fishermen hear a sound that doesn't belong in a world at peace. It is the low, heavy, thumping roar of twin 9-cylinder diesel engines. The fishermen look out into the gray water. A silhouette emerges from the fog. It is massive. It is painted a dark, rusted, ocean-battered gray. Water cascades off a heavily armored conning tower. It is a German U-boat, and it is heading straight for the harbor. For the Argentine military guards on the docks, this is an impossibility. The German submarine fleet has been annihilated. The surviving boats surrendered in May. They are sitting in British and American ports, gutted and disarmed. But this submarine hasn't surrendered. It is flying a white flag, but it is moving under its own power. The men standing on the deck of this submarine do not look like soldiers. They look like specters. They have not seen the sun in weeks. Their uniforms are rotting off their bodies. They smell of diesel fuel, unwashed sweat, and battery acid. They are the crew of U-530. They have been at sea, hunted by every Allied warship on the planet for 130 days. They have crossed the equator entirely submerged. They have sailed thousands of miles past the end of the world. When the Argentine guards point their rifles at the submarine, the 24-year-old German captain blinks the surrender code from a signal lamp. This is the story of the ghost ship of the Kriegsmarine. It is a story that will birth 1,000 conspiracy theories, whispers of smuggled Nazi gold, secret Patagonian bunkers, and the escape of Adolf Hitler himself. But the reality of U-530 is not a Hollywood spy thriller. It is a terrifying psychological study of isolation, mechanical horror, and what happens to the human mind when you realize you are the last target left in a world that wants you dead. To understand the absolute madness of this voyage, you have to put yourself inside the belly of a Type IXC submarine. U-530 is a long-range predator. She's 251 feet long. She weighs over 1,100 tons. But she is not a ship. She is a pressurized steel pipe crammed with machinery, explosives, and 54 sweating men. Life inside a U-boat is a biological nightmare. There are no showers. The fresh water is reserved for drinking and keeping the massive lead-acid batteries topped off. The men share hot bunks. As soon as one man wakes up to go on watch, another man slides into the warm, damp sheets he just vacated. The air is thick with the stench of diesel fumes, rotting food, and human body odor. Condensation drips from the cold steel ceiling, pooling on the floor grates. And commanding this floating iron lung is Oberlieutenant Circe Otto Wermuth. Wermuth is not a grizzled, gray-bearded sea-wolf. He is 24 years old. He is a kid. He has been given command of U-530 in January 1945, right as the German war machine is in its final death throes. This is his first command. He is desperate to prove himself to a navy that is already bleeding to death. In the final weeks of the war, Wermuth is ordered to take U-530 across the Atlantic to hunt American shipping off the coast of New York. It is a suicide mission. By 1945, the Allied anti-submarine network is a flawless, industrialized killing machine. The ocean is covered in radar-equipped bombers. The surface is crawling with destroyer escorts. For a U-boat to survive, it cannot fight on the surface. It must crawl in the dark. Wermuth takes her boat out of Norway and plunges beneath the freezing waves. They cross the Atlantic using a piece of technology that is keeping them alive, but slowly driving them insane. The snorkel. The snorkel is a mechanical breathing tube that allows the submarine to run its diesel engines while submerged just below the surface, but it comes with a terrifying physical cost. When the heavy ocean swells wash over the snorkel valve, the valve automatically snaps shut to prevent the ocean from flooding the engine room. But the massive 9-cylinder diesel engines don't stop running immediately. They need oxygen to burn fuel. When the valve shuts, the engines instantly suck the oxygen directly out of the submarine's interior. In a fraction of a second, the air pressure inside the boat plummets. It creates a violent vacuum. The men feel it in their skulls. Their eardrums pop inward. Their eyes bulge. They gasp for air that is physically being sucked out of their lungs by the massive iron lungs of the engines. Then the wave passes, the valve opens, and the air slams back into the boat, equalizing the pressure with a deafening crack. This happens for weeks on end. Vacuum, pressure, vacuum, pressure. The men suffer from chronic headaches, bleeding ears, and sheer, unfiltered exhaustion. This is the state of the crew when they finally arrive off the coast of New York. Vermuth hunts for targets. He finds an Allied convoy. He lines up the periscope. He fires his torpedoes, and nothing happens. The torpedoes miss, or the magnetic detonators fail, or the steering gyros jam. He fires again. He fires 9 torpedoes over 3 days. Every single one is a failure. Vermuth is a 24-year-old captain who has just crossed an ocean, tortured his crew, and failed to sink a single ship. He is preparing to reload and try again. But then, the radio operator hands him a piece of paper.
The message is from Grand Admiral Karl Donitz, the successor to Adolf Hitler. The broadcast is unencrypted. It is being transmitted in plain text across all frequencies. Germany has surrendered unconditionally. The war is over. All U-boats are ordered to surface, fly a black or blue flag, report their positions, and sail immediately to the nearest Allied port to surrender to the British or the Americans. For the men inside the steel tube, the silence is deafening. They have lost. Their cities are rubble. Their families are either dead, missing, or living under Soviet occupation. And they are sitting in a submarine loaded with high explosives just a few miles off the coast of the United States. Dozens of other U-boat commanders receive the same message. Most of them surface. They hoist the flags. They give themselves up. Others, fiercely loyal to the bitter end, open the valves and scuttle their boats, preferring to drown their machinery rather than hand it to the enemy. But Otto Wermuth looks at the piece of paper and he makes a decision that defies both logic and orders. He refuses to believe it. He convinces himself that the broadcast is a psychological trick engineered by Allied intelligence. He believes it is a trap to force him to surface so the Americans can bomb him into oblivion. But deep down, there is another, darker fear driving his decision. If it is true, and Germany has fallen, Wermuth knows what the Soviets and the British do to captured U-boat crews. The U-boats are despised. They are viewed as assassins. Wermuth decides he is not going to surrender to the Americans. He is not going back to Europe to be thrown into a prisoner of war camp. He looks at his navigational charts. He looks at the vast, empty expanse of the South Atlantic. He chooses a country that remained neutral for almost the entire war, a country with a large, sympathetic German immigrant population. He sets a course for Argentina. He doesn't know that Argentina quietly declared war on Germany just weeks prior, bowing to American pressure. He only knows that it is 6,000 miles away. He orders the crew to cease all offensive operations. He orders total radio silence. They are no longer a warship of the German Navy. They are fugitives, and they are about to attempt one of the longest, most dangerous evasive runs in submarine history. The journey south is a test of human endurance. U-530 drops off the map. To the Allies, she is simply unaccounted for. For the 54 men inside the boat, the world shrinks to the size of gauges, dials, and the relentless thrum of the electric motors. Wermuth knows that if they are spotted by an American destroyer or a British patrol plane, they will be sunk. The Allies are not taking chances with rogue submarines. They must remain completely invisible. They travel entirely submerged during the day, crawling at a sluggish 4 knots on battery power. At night, they cautiously raise the snorkel to run the diesels and recharge the batteries, hiding just below the surface of the black water. They do not transmit, they do not attack, they just run. As they cross the equator, the environmental reality of the submarine turns against them. The waters of the South Atlantic in June are warm. Inside the unair-conditioned steel hull, the heat from the running diesel engines has nowhere to go. The temperature inside the submarine climbs to 100 degrees, then 110 degrees. The humidity hits 100%. The steel walls sweat continuously. The fresh food is gone. They're eating canned meat that tastes like tin and engine grease. But Wormuth is not just running from the Allies, he is running from history. He knows that when they arrive in Argentina, they will be interrogated, the boat will be searched. He is a rogue commander violating a direct surrender order from the head of the German state. He begins to sanitize the submarine. Under the cover of darkness, he orders the crew to drag their remaining torpedoes out of the tubes. One by one, the massive 3,000-pound steel weapons are wrestled up the narrow hatches and shoved off the deck into the deep ocean. They unbolt the anti-aircraft ammunition and throw it overboard. They dismantle the highly classified Hohenzollern radar equipment. They drop it into the abyss. And then Wormuth commits the ultimate naval sin. He takes the ship's logbook, the legal historical record of every order given, every target hunted, and every mile traveled. He destroys it. He throws the codebooks and the Enigma machine into the sea. He is erasing U-530's memory. As they near the coast of South America, the provisions run critically low. The men are starving. They are ghosts. After 70 days of hiding since the surrender order, over 4 months since they left Norway, they reach the coastal waters of Argentina. Wormuth knows he has to render the submarine completely useless before handing it over. He goes down into the engine room. He doesn't just turn off the massive diesels, he orders the mechanics to take highly corrosive battery acid and pour it directly into the precision machine cylinders of the engines. The acid eats through the steel. The engines fuse together. They are permanently, irreparably destroyed. U-530 is no longer a submarine, it is a floating steel corpse. Wormuth orders the boat to the surface. They hoist the white flag, they turn on their navigational lights, and they steer towards Mar del Plata.
When the Argentine military surrounds the U-boat on the morning of July 10, 1945, they are completely bewildered. They bring the 54 German sailors ashore. The men are malnourished, pale, and exhausted. The Argentines feed them, give them haircuts, and immediately lock them under armed guard. The Argentine naval intelligence officers sit Otto Wormuth down in an interrogation room. They ask him a very simple question. The war ended 2 months ago. Where have you been? Wormuth is evasive. He is vague. He admits he was off the coast of the United States on VE Day. He admits he decided to sail to Argentina instead of surrendering. But the Argentines look at the math. A direct trip from New York to Argentina shouldn't take 2 full months, even submerged. When the inspectors board the submarine, their suspicions explode. There are no torpedoes. There is no deck gun. The radar is missing. The engines have been intentionally destroyed with acid. The sailors have no identification papers, and the logbook is gone. Why would a 24-year-old captain spend 70 days sneaking across the globe only to destroy every piece of evidence on his ship before surrendering? What is he hiding? The news hits the international wires. The world goes insane.
You have to understand the psychology of the world in the summer of 1945. The Allies have won, but the trauma is absolute. Hitler's body was burned in a ditch outside a bunker in Berlin. There are no recognizable remains. The Soviet Union is already playing political games, occasionally claiming Hitler might have escaped. The world is paranoid. And suddenly, a heavily armed German submarine, missing its logbooks, arrives completely unannounced in a South American country known for sympathizing with fascism. The conspiracy theories ignite like gasoline. Newspapers in Buenos Aires and New York run screaming headlines. Did U-530 make a secret stop in Patagonia? Did she unload Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun in the dead of night? Is the hull lined with stolen Nazi gold? Did she carry advanced blueprints for jet aircraft or the atomic bomb?
An Argentine reporter claims to have seen a police document detailing a submarine unloading a mysterious high-ranking officer and a woman dressed in men's clothing on a desolate beach. The FBI switchboards light up with unconfirmed sightings of Hitler walking around the Andes. To make matters worse, the Brazilian Navy publicly accuses U-530 of murder. Just days before the U-boat arrived, a Brazilian cruiser, the Bahia, exploded and sank in the South Atlantic, killing over 300 sailors. The Brazilians accuse Wermuth of torpedoing the cruiser on his way down the coast. Wermuth sits in his cell, repeatedly denying everything. At no time did we carry passengers. At no time did we attack a ship after the surrender. But nobody believes the captain who poured acid into his own engines. The myth grows so large that it permanently burns itself into the historical record. Even today, the internet is flooded with documentaries and articles claiming U-530 was Hitler's personal escape pod. But here is the visceral, unvarnished truth. The Brazilian cruiser Bahia was not torpedoed. A post-war naval inquiry proved that Brazilian gunners accidentally shot their own depth charges, sitting on the stern of their ship during anti-aircraft target practice. It was a tragic, self-inflicted explosion. Hitler did not escape. Soviet dental records and exhaustive Allied intelligence proved he died in the dirt of Berlin. And U-530? Allied intelligence crawled through every inch of the submarine. They took the bulkheads apart. There were no secret compartments. There was no gold. The real reason the voyage took 2 months was simply because Wermuth was terrified. He was a kid who had disobeyed the final order of his government. He had forced his men to endure 70 days of physical torture because he was afraid of an American prison camp. He sailed slow because he had to stay submerged. He destroyed the logbook not to hide Hitler, but to hide his own navigational track from the Allies. He destroyed the engines because of a stubborn, petty pride. He didn't want the Americans to use his boat. The conspiracy theory is cinematic. The truth is much darker. It is a story of a young man making a panicked, irrational decision, dragging 530 starving men across the world for absolutely no strategic reason. The Argentine government wants nothing to do with the international nightmare of U-530. They immediately hand the submarine and her crew over to the United States Navy. The Americans tow the dead, acid-burned submarine up through the Panama Canal and bring her to the east coast of the United States. They parade her around. The mighty U-boat is treated as a circus attraction, a war prize for the American public to gawk at. The crew is locked in prisoner of war camps for 2 years before finally being shipped back to the ruins of Germany in 1947. But the U.S. Navy has no use for a Type IX submarine with melted engines. In the winter of 1947, they tow U-530 out into the freezing waters off the coast of Cape Cod, Massachusetts. They leave her bobbing on the surface, empty, dead. Below the water, the American submarine USS Toro lines up its periscope. The American commander does what Otto Wermuth failed to do off the coast of New York. He calculates the firing solution. He gives the order. A live American torpedo streaks through the water. It strikes U-530 perfectly amidships. The explosion snaps the heavy steel spine of the German submarine in half. A massive pillar of fire and water shoots into the sky. The ghost ship of the Kriegsmarine folds in on itself. The torn steel fills with the Atlantic Ocean, and the boat plunges to the bottom of the sea.
What began as a terrifying instrument of industrial slaughter ends its life as scrap metal, blown to pieces for target practice.
Otto Wehrmuth survived the war. He returned to Germany, living a quiet life, his name forever tied to a conspiracy theory he could never outrun. The story of U-530 is a masterclass in how mystery breeds myth. When you have missing logbooks, destroyed machinery, and a 70-day gap in the timeline, the human imagination will always fill the void with the most spectacular story possible. We want to believe in secret missions and escaping villains because it makes history feel like a novel. But history is not a novel. History is 54 men sitting in their underwear in 110-degree heat, eating rancid canned meat, terrified of the radar pings bouncing off their steel coffin. It is a 24-year-old commander making a rogue decision out of fear and pride. The voyage of U-530 didn't change the outcome of the war. It didn't save the Third Reich. But it stands as one of the most bizarre psychological footnotes of the 20th century. It proves that even when the treaties are signed, even when the guns go silent, the war does not end instantly for the men holding the weapons. Sometimes, they just keep running in the dark. History is rarely as clean as the textbooks want you to believe. The edges are always frayed, and the stories of the men who refuse to surrender are often buried under layers of myth and rust. Here on WW2 True Stories, we dig past the conspiracy theories to find the raw, unvarnished truth of what actually happened inside those steel coffins. If the rogue voyage of U-530 gripped you, do me a favor, hit that like button right now. Every single like tells the algorithm to push this video to more people who care about the gritty reality of naval history. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We are pulling these forgotten legends out of the deep every single week. Drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. If you were in Otto Wehrmuth's position, receiving an unencrypted surrender order from a fallen government while sitting off the enemy coast, would you have surfaced, or would you have run for neutral water? Let us know your thoughts. We read every comment. Stay sharp, keep history alive, and we'll see you in the next trench.